Alright, let's see. Somewhere there's a little tab to pull, and I think this is it here. And if I manage to pull that, then I don't risk cutting my hand. That's an important thing on the top there, but we got also one other small package. I'll just cut it open that much. Bring it out. But as important as that one is, let's start with this Made in Abyss one. Which, if I'm not mistaken, I have another collection over there. This is Made in Abyss, the Golden City of the Scorching Sun Limited Edition. Which I don't think I had on DVD. And this is kind of a trippy one. Which says a lot considering how trippy the first season was and the in-between movie, kind of. Is it right to call it that? Because it was in between. There wasn't a movie made to be in between. It was a movie that continued the story forward. And anyways, let's see if I can remember how to open this, because this looks like, okay, yeah, I do that. Something familiar about this. Right. Oh, did we look at the back? I guess the back does say Region A, and that should be English dubbed with Japanese subtitles too. Alright. Oh, look. Outlines of our characters. Kind of. Kind of. Or yes of. I really don't remember the previous box, but Jesus, this is very nice. So if we're curious, this is Made in Abyss, issued year 2025, set number 928. Intriguing. I guess we'll just put these back in the order. Storyboards. Yeah, that's a lot of storyboards. Sorry. Just getting silent because there's something about this that's just very fascinating. Special booklet. Okay, I see a lot more full art in there. A lot of text. Character designs, background images, art. Really cool stuff. Here we have postcards. I think. Yeah. I do feel this is loose enough that I can probably do this without risking. Maybe that would be enough. Just a hole to start opening things. It's interesting because it almost feels like it has bubble wrap consistency, but it doesn't. Anyways, let's take a look. Okay, that's kind of a trippy image. Maybe they're both kind of trippy. I'm not sure if I want to say too much as to why. What am I looking at there? Oh, there we go. Huh. I see a card in there. And the backing. There was nothing in the back of these, right? Yeah. Huh. Man, this really is quite a show. Oh, look. Out of my way, Sosu. And then we got the actual Blu-ray itself with a slightly misaligned internal sleeve. We'll adjust it, and let's take a look at what's on the discs. I have to say that while this season also kind of had, like, not as much going. I don't know. It just feels like there's a lot there that just feels like maybe the show will end and feel like it'll have some interesting meaning to it all. I think this is all stuff we already knew. What else is new? Disc 1, Disc 2, so it's telling you the episodes, clean opening, ending, together with pop-up film and Japanese promos. Oh, there we go. That's a really neat physical edition. Pretty cool. Next up, Kanokon, The Girl Who Cried Fox, Blu-ray release. And it's been so long since I heard this one. Who released this? Media Blasters. I think they did before. I don't think it ever got released on Blu-ray before, so this was the first DVD release. And the DVD release was weird. Like, I think they started releasing it the traditional way, and then they came up with a box DVD release, and now we have it on Blu-ray with region A, English and Japanese stereo, so it's got both. Includes the OVA sequels, Kanokon grade. I'm not sure if I have much else to think about it. Okay, for a while there I thought these were the same image, just reversed, but I see from the hand positions they are definitely different. But they definitely have kind of the same energy, don't they? Not exactly the same, but enough so that I wasn't paying attention enough initially and I didn't notice. The Concierge. I see regions A and B. Crunchyroll.com, so the Crunchy Munchie. So this is just Japanese with English subtitles. I'm not sure what it's about, but she looks kind of infectiously happy. And I thought this was a movie. It probably says somewhere back here. Promos, web preview. The word no doesn't exist in this store. I don't know. I'm blanking on where on the back I want to look for it, and you know what? I just kind of want to look at DVD. Whatever this animation is, whether it's a movie or a show, it's just nice to finally have it in my... I was just showing off the static electricity light as it was. See, it's one thing, feature film. Yeah, okay, it's a movie. With all that. Intriguing. And then last but not least, we have Full Moon wo Sagashite. Or its name looking for the full moon. Oh, this is a volume 1. Cool, so there's going to be multiple releases of this. I thought this was the full release. But seeing that it's volume 1, that means I can actually look forward to more of this coming out. Hopefully more of it comes out. I do believe I have what came out on DVD, and I don't think it was all of it. I think it was only a partial release. And it's a very shoujo show, for sure. Like, okay, the fundamental premise is that our main character sees the Shinigami, god's death. But, they're not very deathly looking. They're very shoujo looking kind of characters. But it was neat. It's got a very infectious opening. Let's see. English and Japanese. Was there a dub? Can wishes really come true? Did I get all of this before? Anime Go. Well, regardless of whether or not I got it all before, I'm definitely going to be purchasing more as it comes out. But yeah, if you're not sure what to think about it, I definitely recommend at least watching the opening. It's, again, got a very infectious opening. And I know back at the time, this used to actually be incredibly highly rated. Could still be the same. I remember enjoying what I did see. But, I don't know. I'm yammering on a bit about the good old days, and now I'm rearranging these so that they can kind of be shown off in a good, clean way. Here's this week's physical anime collection update. Alright, let's go through the big list again. Is it big? It's big. So, with Friday Friend, I watched Kaiju number 8, Season 2, Episode 16. Rewatch for me, of course. I'm not sure if I had any thoughts on the rewatch, other than it didn't feel as long as the first time. And I don't think it was a bad long when I first watched it, but I just remember it feeling like, I don't know, I guess the thing I would have expected to be a season or an episode finale was the halfway point. Which I think is good. But now, I watched, of course, episode 17. And I think so far I'm liking. It's along the same lines as what I said before, where it does feel like there is potential meaning in everything that's happening, and I want to see what's going to happen. It would be nice to just have more of this. It's definitely not it's not like the first season where every other episode is definitely, I mean, episode 1, good first episode. Episode 2 is just like, but this one is setting up, I think, important feeling stuff. I've said that before. Anyways, good stuff. Dragon Ball Daima, episode 15 through 17. Fun enough stuff, with my only problem here being that I think they shouldn't have a problem with all these people with guns. But I think there's an element of this where Akira Toriyama was just like, this is how we make the characters interesting, is walking back some of the power over-leveling that happened, I guess. But, man, I like the fact that Daima existed. Sorry, I said that kind of quietly, but if you didn't hear, I like the fact that Daima exists, was created, was made. Listen to the ending. Reborn as a Vending Machine, Season 2, Episode 7. I thought it was a pretty fun episode. I don't feel like there's much feeling to the show, but some of it does kind of overlap with some of the purpose that has been coming up here in Season 2. So I'm not sure what to think about it from that perspective, but again, from a purely just enjoying watching it perspective, for some reason I just thought it was a nice episode. Clavatus, episode 7. You had a bunch of interesting actiony stuff happened. Potential interesting setup, which we'll have to see what the payoff is. It could be pretty good, but we'll have to see. Onmyo Kaiten Rebirth verse episode 7. I think it feels like this show is going into a sort of real mode where everything up till now has been the kind of precursor to it getting up to this point, which I think is the point. But anyways, it's interesting. It's intriguing. Rise of the Shield Hero, Season 4, Episode 6. I kind of like this episode. I don't think it was necessarily like a great things happening and a great return to form for Shield Hero sort of episode, but I do sort of feel like stuff is happening. It sort of feels like it's more relevant to our Shield Hero's journey, I guess. Even if it's, kind of like, okay, now here's why we've set up all these characters that you need to know until now, which has felt anywhere between rushed and distracting, but maybe fine, maybe it's coming together in a bit. Maybe not in the most immediately obvious of ways, but yeah, fine episode. I think reincarnated as the 7th Prince, Season 2, Episode 18. And if my family's going to be chatting, I'll go ahead and mute that in a little bit. Doesn't actually mute it. You might still hear the ding from the headphones, but 7th Prince. trying to think if there was anything about it that was specifically princely. I do think it successfully reined in a little bit of what I was describing in the previous episode of it's maybe going a little too, okay, those characters are just used to him doing some of this stuff, and so they're not questioning something. But I think they reeled it back just enough such that, yeah, crazy stuff, interesting people, enjoying it. I just can't remember anything specifically I wanted to talk about, I guess, call out and talk about. Welcome to the Outcast Restaurant, episode 7. I think it's a neat setup for understanding the main character sort of episode, but it also felt like a little bit of a lull, maybe a little bit of a distraction. Not the worst that it could have been, but it was an episode. Dan to Dan season 2 episode 19. I forgot that episode 18 had ended with that, and then episode 19 continue where that left off, had some relevant moments. I think working along the lines of a lot of the stuff that I've talked about me wanting to see to a certain degree, and interesting character emotions. I'm just not quite sure what I think about absolutely all of it per se, but I think it was actually a neat episode. Water Magician episode 6. Yeah, again, one of the things I really like about this show is that it kind of gives us, okay, here's why characters in this show are competent, and they aren't built just to serve our main character. While at the same time, let's see, the main character did that, main character did some of that other stuff. There were just the right interactions, and it's set something up so that I think we're about to see our main character do some interesting stuff. I'm not sure what else to comment on other than I appreciate it. I kind of like the vibe. I kind of like the way it feels when it's not doing anything too important. Just our main character's little journey. I kind of like that. Dr. Stone Science Feature Season 4 Part 2 Episode 18. An interesting follow-up from the previous episode. Things I didn't expect. The show keeps us kind of guessing. And it's interesting because I almost wondered if while the previous episode and this episode would leave us with more questions than answers, I was quite surprised with the questions it didn't ask, because it seems like it's got a plan for when it's going to ask those. I'm trying to remember, I think it ended with some of that stuff, what it specifically ended with. But interesting stuff. Secrets of the Silent Witch, episode 7. It was a good episode, I would say. So, one of the things I liked that it did was it kind of reined in elements from this previous episode that I said was very shoujo-y. Didn't feel terribly Secret of the Silent Witch, but now it tied it together much more strongly into something that's just like, okay, our main character has some very sympathetic trauma. And like I said, that's one of the things that makes the premise work, is because the entire idea is like, oh, she invented silent casting because she was too timid to say it out loud is not quite the right way to put it. Because you say it that way, it just sounds like it's being whimsical, but instead it feels like there's just a lot of meaning to that from a exploring this character perspective. Not sure how else to say it, but this episode hit in a lot of feels. Good stuff. Anyways, Shihiro and the Assassin Princesses, episode 7. I guess you just have interesting stuff happening. I don't feel like I have a good long-term goal of what I expect from the show, but I do feel that on an episode-by-episode basis, it continues to be entertaining. So that's fine, I think. I do still have Scooped Up by an S-Rank Adventurer on the list, but I think I got proof that episode 7 aired But Crunchyroll didn't add it, so it may be that I'm about to drop it. Guess we'll have to see. But, yeah. The Summer Hikaru Died, Episode 7. Quite interesting things happened in this episode. Again, with some of the problem being that it may be slightly more on the relationship side than the horror side, but I've already said that much, just pretty much every single episode. But I do feel like this one connected those back up together a bit better than the previous episodes, which haven't not had it, but this one, you sort of feel it a little bit better, I guess. Interesting to see what they'll continue doing with it. Ugly Mug Epic Fighter Episode 7. Entertaining episode, I guess. Again, I'm not sure if it's got a good feeling of this. This is kind of the meaning of the show. Like, I feel like I don't feel like it feels like there's a destination purpose sort of thing. It kind of is it's kind of said some stuff, but I don't know what to think about it. Anyways, entertaining enough. Apocalypse Bringer. I did not enunciate. Apocalypse Bringer Beyondgra, Episode 7. Let's see what all happened in this episode. That. Yeah, I think it's kind of entertaining enough stuff. I sort of, this one also, I don't know if I've got a good idea what the final destination is supposed to look like, because there's still some vagueness there. It's sort of like with Overlord, you can kind of see that there's a confrontational with the world sort of approach. This one maintains an interesting balance where it's hard to tell what that should look like in the long run, because they set up things that could lead to long-term confrontation that aren't even necessarily the stuff that it's called out in the beginning per se. But I'm not sure what else I would say. Anyways, I, again, still really like it because it talks about, yeah, I don't know. It just, its approach to things being like these turn-based civilization sort of games, I just kind of really like it every time it talks about it. And I don't really play those kind of games. So for me, it's just kind of neat to continue seeing that be the approach. And it just feels like it's always there. Gachiakuta, Episode 6, where I was worried that it was falling into certain shonen tropes and accidentally showing off kind of, oh wow, look, here's how neat the world is. Like, I want to see what's interesting about our main character. You made a show about a main character with an interesting goal, and I want to see him reach that goal. Show me more of that. And I'm not sure if we're getting more of that, but we are getting more clarity and more stuff that's making our main character interesting. And it's making his interactions with these elements interesting. So overall, it was actually a much more fun episode than we thought. But we will have to see what the next episode is and does, I guess. And then last but not least, we have Sword of the Demon Hunter Season 1 Part 2, Episode 19. Which for a while there I thought wasn't actually on High Dive. But I guess even though it said coming soon, it was actually there. And I was able to just watch it. I don't know if it's something weird with my browser having something cached or the site was a little behind. But I'm glad I got to watch the episode because some pretty heavy things happened in that one too. I think we had some touching episodes this week. And overall, I definitely want to see what they're doing with the rest of it. The rest of this season. The rest of the series would be nice too, but we'll have to see when they get there. Alright. That's a whole bunch of stuff. I don't know that I have a whole lot of video game stuff to talk about. Dead by Daylight is going to do another 2v8. I guess somebody pointed out that they're not really saying anything about like any new killers. They've only announced like new maps, tweaks to classes, killers, some things like that. And I guess we'll have to see how that turns out when it actually goes live tomorrow, I think. Huh. Yeah, it's going to go live tomorrow. But yeah, outside of that, yeah, I did not play many games. I just... Wow. It's been a week that's got away. Now, the good news is I did watch The Amazing Digital Circus Episode 6. If you haven't watched it and you've enjoyed up to Episode 5, definitely watch Episode 6. It's another episode where it does, while there are elements to it that feels like, okay, yeah, the whimsical in it is fun, but it feels like the emotional moments, they almost feel like they could be kind of scripted, except that some of them hit exactly right how they need to. Now, granted, if it keeps doing that too much, then it can sort of feel like, okay, the show feels like it's deliberately whiplashing between the two things too much. It doesn't feel like it in episode 6, but it definitely felt like that could be a risk of feeling, which I don't think will necessarily make it not entertaining, but it could kind of cheapen the feel of what's in there. But what we did get was actually, again, very fun, good slapstick. I'm trying to think if some of it was actually, yeah, I think it measured up to the restaurant episode, which had some of the best stuff that I can think of, which, if y'all think there were other episodes that were better, then, that just kind of shows how good a whole lot of it is. I can think of a couple of Kingler moments that were actually quite spectacular. Zubul telling it like it is. Pomni and Jax singing that Daisy Bell song is... Those voice actors did a fucking marvelous job. I mean, they sounded great. They sounded fun. It was a good song. I didn't even realize how old that song was. See, I was familiar with it because of 2001: A Space Odyssey. And some of y'all watching me might be like, oh, yeah. Or some of you was like, of course. Or some of you was like, what? Because if you think about it, there's people who were born in 2001 who are graduating from college. We all get so old so fast. And some of y'all probably didn't even know the movie existed. I think it's a good movie. It's definitely a tricky movie to watch because if you're used to things with modern pacing, it can be hard. But I think people find value in it for its slow pacing, for lack of better terms. It's my understanding that part of that is supposed to kind of just represent this sort of timelessness of space. If you need a good metric to watch the movie, I think it's very clever, a very clever narrative design, where if you kind of think of a movie with like a 4-act structure, or story with a 4-act structure, to a certain degree, the movie itself is stories within stories. And I don't mean it's like repeated stories, but rather the stories are individual stories themselves, where they have an establishing the nature, establishment of everyday life. Then they have an inciting incident. Then they have, I guess, a twist and then a finale. And if you think about it, if you break it up into 4 things like that, and I don't know that I've got good names for those last couple of things. I've heard that sort of idea before. There's segments in the movie itself that are those concepts on their own, where the Dawn of Mankind chapter is itself, a story that's about here's everyday life, here's the inciting incident, here's the result, and here's the conclusion. Or here's a conflict, and here's a conclusion, that sort of thing. That happens in the Dawn of Mankind chapter itself. And at the same time, the Dawn of Mankind chapter is also itself establishing this is the norm, whereas the second chapter of the movie is itself an inciting incident for the entire movie altogether. And so when you chain all those together, I feel like you can watch the movie and say, okay, this is some of the meaning. It's supposed to be a story about the individual characters for the stories, but a story about humanity for the movie as a whole. Whether or not you believe that it has meaning as a whole for all of humanity or just only the humanity in the movie is perfectly fine. I think some people feel like they can feel like the story for humanity in real life because the so-called Stargate sequence is supposed to represent a transition for the character that's in that sequence, and at the same time it's supposed to represent a transformation that character gets forced through at the same time
maybe we, the audience, can vaguely grasp that there's some transformation that we ourselves are supposed to be getting by watching the movie. I don't know. I guess I just talked about it a little bit because I think there's an element of it that's... It worked because it was authored by two separate people. Like 2010, the sequel to 2001, it's a very fun movie. But you can tell it's a lot more straightforward sci-fi. With weird elements in it, granted, but it's still a lot more sci-fi. And it's really good. And I think it's that combination of the sci-fi element that Arthur C. Clarke brought and Kubrick's weird approach to things, I guess. Kind of doing something different from what Arthur would have done, but I think because it was the two of them together, it really makes it feel like the movie is something else. And I don't mean like, oh, it's the best thing you'd ever watch, but I mean like, there's something about it that's just... I don't know. If you try to think about meaning behind a lot of stuff, I think you find that the movie just has a lot of value because it can make you think a lot. I've interpreted that part of the movie one way, but then after talking to people, I interpret it a completely different way now. It's a neat movie. Hopefully, if any of you watch it, you can appreciate it based on stuff I've said. Maybe you won't have the time to watch it. It could also just be like... It might take quite a bit of time. But anyways, the reason that movie comes up is because there's an iconic scene in that one where... Actually, I don't know if I want to say that. I mean, it's a spoiler for what, 60s? That's a 60-year-old movie. Maybe a little less than that. But at the same time, Daisy Bell is iconic in there. And its iconicness is kind of doubly important compared to Amazing Digital Circus. But I really like that there's this kind of chain of memory, because the song was actually written back in the 1800s, 1892 or something like that, if I remember my Wikipedia, since I looked it up. I might have the year wrong there, but just like, wow, that was written a long time ago. And it's just pleasant when Jackson Pomney are singing it. You know, you don't think of it as like, wow, they're singing in 100. They just sound great. It's a great sounding song. And there's this history to it where the reason it was chosen for 2001 A Space Odyssey for the scene it was used in, that scene is a lot more powerful. Whereas this one, it's just fun. But 2001 it was powerful, especially since when you also know that the reason it was chosen there is because of why it was chosen there, and that has to do with actual real life use of that song by IBM back in the 1950s, 1960s. When did that happen? I don't know. Dates are so hard to keep track of. And that's all to say that I think this show is doing a great job with Jax. And by that I mean he is an asshole. But I don't think this show's like, oh yeah, well you're just supposed to enjoy him. And it's not supposed to say, oh, he's deep so you should forgive him. It's just simply deep. And this is a very Jack Strong episode, I would say. And I think the reason it all works out is because at the end of the day, it sort of feels like there's a lot of meaning it's exploring. And Jax isn't there as an exemption from some of that meaning. In fact, if anything, it feels like while other characters are exploring things that are just like really touching, really thought-provoking, and really empathetic, Jax feels stronger. And I think it's because he's not been put in that position. Like, he's supposed to be so in contrast with what the show may be trying to do that him being aligned with it makes it feel like there's more meaning to it. We will have to see if that's actually the case as it plays out. But, you know, they've done a very good job of keeping it funny, thought-provoking, whimsical, heart-tugging. Good stuff. Looking forward to episode 7, however long it takes us to get that. Alright, I think that wraps up everything I was going to blabber on about. Hopefully y'all enjoyed whatever y'all heard. Y'all? I can't think of anything coming soon. I know Labor Day is a couple weeks away, but that's not for this video. Y'all, have a nice week.